How you guys doing? Thanks for watching this video. It's Chuck Burns for the USA, and I'm going to touch the Chris Kyle, Jesse Ventura trial a little bit. Well, the Jesse Ventura's suit against Chris Kyle for defamation of character and name. Now, first we want to understand something that he won this case, and I feel especially obligated to touch this because I've been hearing what people have been saying on all the mainstream media sources, from on the left and the right, from Fox News to MSNBC, slightly different angles of attack, but nonetheless attacking Jesse Ventura. Now, you see, a defamation and libel suit is always very hard to win. It's one of the hardest cases to prove in a court of law. Ventura won. So why did Ventura win? Well, first off, let me start off with something else, actually. Because this is the important part that everybody's going to harp on. He's going after this Navy SEAL. Well, let's not forget, so is Ventura. Ventura was also a Navy SEAL. So why is Kyle's word better than Ventura's? Good question, right? One that should be answered. Now, in this case, I would say it's not. Kyle, in the depositions he gave for the book to be written for him, because he didn't write the book page for page, he admitted down the road to embellishing several parts of it, including embellishing the fight scene. The fight scene is actually a complete embellishment. It's a lie. Now, we have ways of knowing this, but again, I'm going to touch something that I want to keep going with where I was going to go originally, and that's that, we hear also that he's now suing Chris Kyle's wife since Chris Kyle's deceased. This is also not true. You see, he sued Chris Kyle before Chris Kyle died. Chris Kyle also had the option to just apologize to Ventura, remove that part from the book with the publisher before the book was even printed, and Jesse Ventura would have dropped the lawsuit and forgiven him as SEAL brothers. See, Kyle didn't retract his lie, and so now his family's stuck dealing with a lie that he made to make money. And that's not the only lie he made to make money. We hear he said, well, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds to veterans organizations. In the trial, it came out that Ventura only donated 2% of the money that he actually made off the book to charities, and he took 98% of the rest and put it in his personal bank account. He got the book to sell. He brought the sales up by saying, oh, this is all going to charity. Only 2% did. Only 2%. So, we already have his character in question now. Right? That sucks, huh? You would think a SEAL wouldn't lie about another SEAL. But it's the truth. Also now, we have to look at how the people in the mainstream media are saying, oh, Chris Kyle is suing this poor widow, hurting these veterans organizations, which I just told you is not true, and hurting his family. That's the funny part, because he can't be hurting the family and the veterans organizations at the same time, because either all the money goes to charity or the money goes to him personally. Or a good bit of it, maybe. But if he's giving 100% to charity, how can we be hurting his family? Well, you could say, well, they have to pay for the lawyers. Not true again. Most publishing agencies have an insurance underwriter that they take out in case either their stocks of the books are destroyed in a car crash from the printing press, or for whatever random reason, or a author being inaccurate and the book not selling because it comes out that what they said was a lie. They have insurance against all these things. That insurance is paying the settlement, and it's paying the lawyer fees for Kyle's widow. So we need to take all this into consideration and say we're being lied to by the mainstream media. Now, I'm going to go here real quick on this. How do we know that Kyle was lying even further beyond the fact that we already had put his character into question? Jesse Ventura had a car rental stub that said he picked up the car at 7:30. The time that Kyle gives for this all taking place, and the people that were testified in the stand, which the times were inconsistent, but in the same time frame, were impossible to have happened because Ventura wouldn't have been able to get there by that time with a 7:30 pickup time. I don't know the exact logistics of it, but in court it held up and the jurors thought it was a sound argument. And we in our system, our justice system, we have to trust the people that we put in the jurors, So let's assume they're right because they were there and we weren't. So the time frame doesn't add up. Also on top of that, all of Kyle's witnesses testified inaccurately and contradicted each other. None of them put the fight happening in the same place that McPee's the bar, which is Navy SEAL bar in San Diego. None of them put it in the same place the bar. Inaccurate testimony, whereas Ventura's witnesses were consistent. Not only were they consistent, their stories matched. Every single second of their stories matched. And that's pretty cool, because that tells you something. That tells you that Jesse Ventura is telling the truth, and Kyle's lying, and the people that are covering for him are all just none of them saw the fight. It's all hearsay. So we have to take this into consideration and say, you know what? If this is all hearsay from his witnesses and didn't see a thing, and they have inconsistent testimony, we're being lied to, like I've said multiple times before. So now let's go to why is the media lying? Well, we have to look at this. When Ron Paul ran in 2008, and especially this time in 2012, there's a very purposeful and very deliberate attempt to repress the coverage of him, you know, to not display the polls with all the data, because there'd be like this missing percentage that was the biggest percentage, and it was always Ron Paul a lot of times. Well, at least half the time, I'd say that for a fact. And it probably was more, I think. On top of that too, you see how the RNC had Ron Paul's votes and delegates that he got in like Maine weren't given to him, and they just gave it to Romney, and the numbers were marked as 0 in the RNC's delegate voting. You see, and then you see on the left wing of MSNBC, they're defaming him as a conspiracy theorist, talk about his show. He's just a hack nut job that says 9/11 was an inside job. There's fluoride in the water, which there is. And 9/11 is very questionable. I won't go there with you, but it's a lot of questionable things going on. If you don't think that, you haven't read enough. Now, why would that be? Why are they saying all those things? Because you see, libertarians, free-thinking people, the Ron Pauls, the Jesse Venturas, people like me, people like you hopefully, question the establishment's authority and party lines. We look at them and say, both of you are corrupt. Both of you are not doing your job and not looking out for us, the American people. You think it's we the government, not we the people. And that threatens them. It threatens their power. It threatens their whole piggy bank and payoff scheme that they get money for their campaigns, and then they give contracts for government contracts to the people that are their friends, just like Obama did with the healthcare law. That's why it costs almost $1 billion now to make a website. Damn. See, they want to keep that going because that's their milk and their bread and butter. That's their milk and honey. And we're threatening it because we, a lot of Americans now, are starting to think for ourselves and say, you know, none of these people are doing me a damn bit good. Everybody on both sides, it seems, except for I can count the good people in Washington on my fingers and toes. It's less than 20, honestly. And as we look at that and we figure this out, they're doing more and more to push the people who are leaders that represent us down. They're taking people like Ventura, who are for freedom and liberty, and making them look bad and defaming them, even when they have overwhelming evidence that in this case, this lawsuit, that Ventura was wronged. He was lied about to sell books by a punk who is seemingly proud of going to Iraq and shooting all the people he did. Now, I'm not against our soldiers, but our soldiers have to start thinking for themselves. Because you know what? If you read George Washington's farewell address in 1796, you come away with one impression: that we should mind our own business. And you know what? I trust George Washington over anybody else's opinion in the government these days, especially, and just about throughout history. He was a man that was offered to be the king, president for life of America, whatever you want to call it. He turned it down. He reluctantly went to the 1791 Constitutional Convention. But he went because when he turned away from the door, when they kicked him to his house, his plantation asked him to come, he's like, haven't I given enough? He closed the door, and before he even got a couple feet, he turned around and said, no, I haven't, you know. And he went back and he wrote in there, his very presence was enough to make it come out right. So when you take a man like that humble, that turned down that much power, and he says that our country, he's one of our founders, mind you, he says that our country should mind its own business and be concerned about us, and not go trying to push our will in other countries and let them be free and make their choices for themselves, I'd listen to him. And people like Ventura and Ron Paul listen to that man. And that's threatening to the establishment. Because it hurts their pockets, it hurts their power, it hurts the corruption that they continue and enforce, it seems. And the media that helps them do it is party to it as well. Because the money goes through their hands in other ways. So I'd like to have you all just take this Chris Kyle, Jesse Ventura moment and think beyond just this trial and what is happening in our country. And think of how this is just a case example of how a man for freedom and liberty, not for interventionist foreign policy, where we're going out and trying to push ourselves and the rest of the world, where we mind our own business, take care of us, and we deal with people who are beneficial for us to deal with because we choose to. Nobody's slave, no sheik's pawn, no subject or almost vassal of OPEC pleading to them to produce more oil for us. No, we just worry about America. But people don't want that at the very top, from the media to DC. And we need to think about that, consider it, and think of how this is just another example of somebody who does stand for the right stuff, like George did, Mr. G. Washington. and how they're defaming him, putting him down, because he threatens their power. We should all hope to be such a threat to their power that we get treated like Jesse Ventura. I would wear that as a badge of honor. Thanks, guys, for listening. Chuck Burns for the USA. There's one thing I'm for, and that's for America. Signing out. Wishing you have a good night. Please subscribe to the channel if you like what I say. Please watch some more videos. I got some great playlists up right now I've compiled of Trey Gowdy's one, of the Benghazi hearings and stuff in Congress. So take a look at them, check them out. Check out some of my personal videos I've made. I encourage no more compromise. It's a fantastic one because we have to stop compromising. We got to. It's got to stop. Thanks for watching again. Have a good one.